talking about top mistakes for new beginners, photographers. Every podcast, I will be doing more. So here it is. I'm going to do like a series of these, like a 4-part series. So subscribe, comment, and like if you want to see more of this type of content. First mistake is stop shooting in auto. And if you don't have a camera, even on your iPhone, you can get Blackmagic camera, which helps you to shoot in manual instead of just taking normal photos like that your phone does. And I think that it's best to experiment with manual because there's only so much you can really achieve with automatic, and it's kind of killing like the creativity levels. Like I feel like it's limiting what you can do. You should be able to do all of the stuff that the automatic is doing for you essentially. Anyway, I'll show you some of the samples of what I mean when taking it from automatic to manual. Is a massive difference. So these are the photos I used to take on automatic. There you go. And these are when I switched to manual. Like, I mean, just look at the difference it makes when you toggle a button on the camera. Like, you literally just switch it from automatic to manual. And I think that's what everybody needs to do. I feel like it just elevates everything. Like, it makes you learn more about the camera as well. And it actually helps with the process of the photo as well. Because more than the actual result of the photo, I feel like the process is so much. I've done some crazy shoots, and I feel like the process is what makes me love them even more. Like, I love the fact that I've experimented with like water and fire and everything like that. Obviously, don't get me wrong, I love looking back at the photos, but not as much as thinking back at the process because I feel like it's the process, then the result, and then the result makes it look nice. Anyway, let's go to the camera basics. The 3 basic things that you need to know in manual mode: shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Mate, they all sound foreign, don't they, right now? I know, I've been there. Right, let's start off with shutter speed. Shutter speed is literally, I'm going to do it, visual learner, if anyone's a visual learner like me. Shutter speed is how fast, essentially how fast your camera opens and closes. Like, how fast the shutter goes. So if you put it on like sports mode or something, that's how fast your camera is opening and closing. So on manual mode, I might have to get a close up for this. On manual mode, you've got, in my layout, okay, right, that's the shutter speed where it says 1/250, and then the F number is your aperture, and then it says ISO. So for example, if you keep your shutter speed, let's say like 1/250 or something, that's like a standard way of, it's like a pretty decent shutter speed. If you keep it at like 1/4000, it's a lot faster. So it all just depends on what type of shot you want to go for. Like a lot of, if you're doing a lot of fast paced stuff, like you're like taking pictures of someone running or like a car going, you typically want a faster shutter speed. But if you're doing stuff like long exposure or like motion stuff, you want a slower shutter speed. You can go up to like 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Bulb mode is literally just however long you want, and then you can click it again and it'll go off. So it's just about what you want. And here are some of my like long exposure photographs, which I love. And that I think I had like 5 or 6 seconds at least, just so that I got more movement in the photo because I wanted a lot of light trails. Moving on to ISO. ISO controls how much light is let in via the lens, right? So basically, the higher the ISO you go, right, the more grainier your photo is going to be. And depending on what type of photo you want, if you want like a crisp, simple photo, try and keep that ISO as low as possible. For example, like 100 to 400 is the maximum I push it. Sometimes 800 if I'm shooting in really dark conditions and I need a lot of light to be let in, and it's quite hard, like let's say some long exposure photos and you can only really see the grains if you really zoom in, that's fine. But if you want to get clean, crisp shots, try to keep that ISO in the sweet spot between 100 to 400. So if you're starting out, look at stuff that you want to try out and look at all of the techniques and stuff. Don't be like afraid to try like techniques that you think are like really crazy, like long exposure stuff. It's not. You can literally do it with an iPhone. The best way to get inspiration for photos is looking at other people's photos. That's what I did with long exposure. And I can throw some names out like Optical Wonder, stuff like that. Like those YouTubers, and they show tutorials of what they do to get the shots as well. So when you're starting out, that's really helpful. So definitely try and look at stuff that makes you want to take more photos, making sure you're getting out there regularly and taking photos yourself, because there's no better place to learn than on the job. Like literally, if you go out and take photos, that's when you're gonna learn. Like, oh, okay, just put it on manual mode and just keep cranking the settings. Like when you first start, that's what you have to do. You literally have to just keep cranking the settings as much as you want, and you'll get your desired shot eventually. And that's the best thing about manual mode. Like with auto, you're so restricted. Like you can't do any long exposure stuff. You can't really do like low light photography. You can't, obviously it's set to adapt to each condition, but if you want specific things that break out of the normal shutter speed, ISO and aperture, you're only going to be able to do that and manually adjust the settings yourself. That's the best way to do it, because it's so creative and it's going to make the shot look even better. You don't want the camera to determine what settings you should have and what you shouldn't have. Like you should find that out yourself. That's what I would say to anyone starting out. Definitely stop shooting in automatic. Right, on to aperture. Aperture, I'd say, is definitely the most confusing out of the three. Out of shutter speed and ISO and aperture, I think aperture, this is why I've left it to last, because it's confusing. Aperture is how much light you want to let into your photo via the settings, right? So a narrower aperture leads to less light, whilst a wider aperture lets in lots of light. But the reason why it's confusing is you'd think that the higher the number, the wider, right? No. So f1.8 or f3.5, 4.5, something like that. So let me show you real quick. f3.5 we're on right now. That's the lowest it can go. And that, one of the lowest, so that's going to let in the most amount of light, because it's the widest. Composition, in other words, framing, basically, is one of the most important elements in taking a photo, because it's what makes the photo, isn't it? Like when you first look at the photo, you see what's in it, see how it's been taken, what angle it's been taken. So I think that's one of the key things for a successful photo. And I'd say experimenting with so let's say you have a shot in mind, I'd say experimenting with the same shot 3 or more times. Like I was advised to like get down on the ground, and like when I was like first like starting out with a camera, I was like told to like get down on the floor, like try look at it in a different way, see what perspectives you can see. I'd say if you have one shot in mind, try and think of 3 different outcomes for that same shot, and you really want to try and put your unique spin on it. Like even if it's taking pictures of a landscape, like anyone could take a picture of a landscape, but how is your landscape different to anyone else's is what I'm saying. So definitely try and avoid just shooting only at eye level, because it is a bit of, not a drawback, but I feel like you can achieve so much when you just like even just go to the ground and just get a puddle or something. Like like look at this photo that I took, like where I've got on the ground and found like a puddle, and just taking it, like using it as a leading line to draw your eyes into the main focal point of the image. Yeah, leading back to manual mode. Also trying manual focus as well, which is basically just not allowing the camera to focus for you. So you have this little toggle at the top of the camera where you can rotate it, and which I definitely recommend for anyone, because all of it's just trying to do it manually is better. I feel like obviously autofocus is nice as well. If you're in a hurry and stuff, try and do it on autofocus. Yeah, I also wanted to start talking about like trusting in camera gear more than yourself. Like don't think that you need like the most expensive stuff to like be the best photographer out. You don't need that. I've had this camera for, I think it's been in my family for like 10 plus years. It was bought in like 2010, something like that. You can literally search it up. It's a Canon 500D, and all of the photos that I've shown in this video have come from this camera. And it's not like you're like, 30 megapixels, all that crap. It's literally just like a 15 megapixel camera, and you can achieve literally the same outcomes, possibly even better, because I feel like old cameras make you think more. The new cameras are so like, it's almost like a cheat, isn't it? Like you have settings for everything now. Like the Canon R5s, everything, you have settings for like, you want to take a picture of a car, here you go, have this. You want to take a picture of a person, here you go, have this. So definitely, if you're gonna invest in a camera, don't put more trust in the camera than you put trust in yourself, because the camera only gets you so far. It's more about your shooting ability, because I feel like a lot of people mistake how hard it is to actually take a photo. It's not about the camera. And when people say, oh, your camera's really good, it's not the camera, it's the person who's taking the photo. If you give that camera to a stranger, they're not going to be able to take the same photo as you. So don't trust the camera more than your shooting ability. All of the photographers that you aspire to be like or take inspiration from, they all started off with a budget camera or like not the most expensive camera. They all started off with something relatively affordable, and they ran with it and they got amazing photos from it. And I think that's just a lesson to all the photographers out there, all the aspiring photographers. Just trust in yourself as well as your camera gear. And also, if you get like a budget DSLR, it's more about the lens than the body as well. Like, it's the lens that takes the photo for you. It's not the body. Obviously, the body is also useful. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to take the photo. And when you're first starting out, if people are criticizing you, anything like that, let them. Like, they're like, oh, why are you taking pictures of park benches? I don't know. Why are you taking pictures of trees? Like, oh, these don't look good. Like, let them say whatever. If you're getting that sort of criticism, it's a good thing. It means people are actually taking an interest in your photos and looking at them. Like, that's what anyone else wants. Like, obviously you want people to look at your photos and you want them to like them, but if they don't, but they're looking at them, you're still winning at the end of the day. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, no, I hope this video has been helpful. Stay tuned, because this is going to become a series and there's more on the way. If you've liked this video, let me know in the comments, and subscribe and let me know in the comments, and I'll reply to you guys. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.